Ladies and gentlemen, in a world where love is often mistaken for desire, where loud declarations replace quiet discipline, there was once a man who chose a different path. Love is often romanticized as something to be owned, something to possess. Society often portrays love as a bond where one person is seen as the other's other half, as though without the other they would be incomplete. However, Stoic philosophy teaches us a different, more profound understanding of love. True love, rooted in virtue, is not about possessing someone or making them dependent on you for your own happiness. It is not about making another person fit into the mold you envision for them. Instead, love, in its most powerful form, is a partnership grounded in respect, freedom, and mutual growth. To truly love someone is to recognize them as an equal being, someone who has their own thoughts, emotions, and desires. They are not a means to your own end, nor a reflection of your worth or self-esteem. They are a full person in their own right, and it is only through recognizing and respecting their autonomy that love can truly flourish. When we treat someone as a possession, when we try to control their actions or dictate their feelings, we are not practicing love. We are practicing control, and control is not love. It is fear. True love is built on a foundation of virtue. In the Stoic sense, virtue is the cultivation of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These qualities are not fleeting or dependent on external conditions. They are principles that endure, no matter what happens around us. When we approach love with this mindset, we understand that it is not about seeking constant validation or trying to hold someone captive in our lives. Instead, it is about working toward becoming the best versions of ourselves for the benefit of the relationship. It is about nurturing a partnership where both individuals can grow freely, not because of need or obligation, but because of mutual respect and choice. When he loved her, he did not see her as something to be won or claimed. He saw her as a partner with whom he could share a journey of mutual respect and support. He was not seeking to change her, nor did he expect her to change for him. Instead, he focused on becoming the person who could offer her not possession, but companionship, someone who could love her for who she truly was, not for what he wanted her to be. He did not need to possess her, because his love was based on admiration for her individuality, for her strengths and weaknesses alike. His love was not about ownership, it was about equality and freedom. The Stoic mindset also teaches us that external circumstances cannot dictate our internal state. When you love someone, you cannot depend on them for your emotional well-being. This is not to say that love is cold or indifferent. Quite the opposite. Love in the Stoic sense is profound and all-encompassing, but it is also grounded in self-sufficiency. His love for her was not about filling a void within himself or solving his emotional deficits. Instead, it was about offering her a partnership where both of them could stand together as individuals, each responsible for their own happiness, but choosing to walk side by side. He knew that love would not thrive if it was based on need. He had to be a complete person on his own first, someone who could stand tall, grounded in virtue and self-awareness. Only then could he offer a love that was not about clinging or expecting something in return. He didn't need her to define him, nor did he want her to. He wanted her to be free to be herself, just as he was free to be the person he had worked so hard to become. This was the foundation of their bond, two people, each striving toward virtue, each supporting the other's growth, each respecting the other's independence. In this way, love was not something to possess, but a partnership in which both souls could rise to their full potential. It was a love based on the understanding that each person is their own, but together they could create something that was greater than the sum of their parts, a love that, like virtue itself, transcends fleeting emotions and remains steadfast through time. In a world where many chase after love with impatience, often looking for immediate gratification or seeking external validation, he chose a path that was both quieter and more profound. His first priority was not to win her affection, but to cultivate his own character. He understood that love, in its truest form, cannot be founded upon fleeting desires or a pursuit of approval from another. It must be built on a foundation of self-mastery, where a person first learns to master their own emotions, their own actions, and their own thoughts before offering them to another. To love someone with the depth and integrity it deserves requires more than just charm or passion. It requires wisdom, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to personal growth. He understood that if he was to offer her anything meaningful, he had to first ensure that he had something worthy to give. Rather than focusing on winning her heart through romantic gestures or empty promises, he focused on winning his own inner peace and virtue through consistent practice and self-reflection. He knew that this was not only the most authentic way to love her, but the only way to ensure that his love would not fade or falter under pressure. Love based on ego or expectation is fragile. Love based on virtue is steadfast. Every day, he worked on bettering himself, not to impress her, but because he knew that his character was the bedrock of any relationship he might form. This journey of self-mastery was not easy. It required him to face his weaknesses, to confront the parts of himself he wanted to avoid, and to discipline his mind and body. It meant tempering his impulses and rising above emotional reactions. He learned to practice patience and kindness, to take responsibility for his actions, and to meet life's challenges with resilience and clarity. Each step he took toward mastering himself was a step closer to becoming the kind of person who could love another in a way that was deep, consistent, and true. He understood that love cannot thrive on the whims of the moment, nor can it be sustained by fleeting emotional highs. Real love is not a rush of excitement, but a slow, steady commitment to growth and mutual respect. It is a journey, not a destination. Therefore, he approached love not as something to be pursued, but as something to be earned. First by earning his own respect through self-discipline and self-awareness, and then by earning her trust through consistent action and virtue. He did not try to manipulate her or to win her over by showcasing the best parts of himself while hiding his flaws. He was not interested in impressing her with superficial charm. Instead, he worked to be a man who could stand before her as his true self without pretense or artifice. His authenticity, grounded in virtue, became the foundation upon which his love for her could grow. It was through this authenticity, this alignment with what was right, that he began to truly understand the nature of love. Love, he realized, is not something you seek to capture. It is something you become worthy of through the choices you make and the life you live. His self-mastery also taught him the power of restraint. Love cannot flourish in a relationship built on neediness or dependency. He did not seek her affection to complete him because he was already whole. He did not look to her for validation or to fill any emotional void. Instead, he saw her as a companion on the path, someone he could love without trying to possess. He was free to love her deeply because he was not dependent on her love to define his worth. In mastering himself, he became someone who could offer her love that was not rooted in desperation or insecurity, but in a deep understanding of what it meant to be truly free. By focusing first on mastering his own character, he created a space in which love could naturally grow, a love that was neither possessive nor conditional, but rooted in respect, freedom, and mutual growth. In this way, his love was not an effort to win her, but a quiet, steady offering of his best self, unburdened by expectation and free from the constraints of ego. Through his journey of self-mastery, he became not just a man capable of loving her, but one who deserved her love in return. In the pursuit of love, it is often easy to overlook the importance of self-respect. We tend to believe that love is something that happens to us, something we can receive from others or seek out externally. Yet, true love does not begin with another person. It begins within ourselves. It is only when we have a solid foundation of self-respect, grounded in wisdom and virtue, that we can extend genuine love to another person without losing ourselves in the process. This understanding was pivotal to his journey. He learned early on that to love someone else with integrity, he had to first learn to love and respect himself, not from a place of vanity or self-centeredness, but from a place of honoring his own worth, his own character. It is through self-respect that we can set boundaries, act with dignity, and offer love without expecting anything in return. For love, when given freely and generously, is at its most pure when it is not a transaction, but a gift. In the realm of relationships, it is easy to fall into the trap of idealizing someone, of imagining them as the person we want them to be, rather than accepting them for who they truly are. This is a common pitfall, especially when we are in love, as our desires can cloud our judgment. Yet, he understood the profound wisdom in accepting her as she was, flaws and all. True love, in its most authentic form, does not seek to change the other person. It seeks to honor and embrace them fully, with all their complexities, imperfections, and nuances. From the moment he met her, he was not consumed by fantasies or unrealistic expectations. He didn't envision a perfect version of her that fit neatly into his idea of what a partner should be. Instead, he saw her as a whole person, deserving of respect and love for everything she brought to the relationship, both the light and the shadow. To love her truly meant to understand that she was not a puzzle he needed to solve or a project he needed to improve. She was not an object to be shaped to fit his desires or expectations. She was already whole. His love for her was grounded in deep acceptance, not conditional upon her changing in any way. He did not need her to fit a mold, to meet certain standards of perfection, or to fulfill some idealistic image he had created in his mind. He appreciated her for the person she was in the present moment, with all of her strengths, weaknesses, and contradictions. He understood that love is not about molding someone into a version of themselves that fits our own narrative. It is about learning to love them as they are, in all their raw and real beauty. This level of acceptance required patience and humility. He knew that to love her truly meant to embrace her humanity, her flaws, her quirks, her vulnerabilities. She did not have to be flawless in his eyes for him to love her deeply. On the contrary, it was her imperfections that made her beautiful. He saw her struggles not as obstacles to overcome, but as part of her journey. His love was not contingent upon her being perfect. It was based on the understanding that love is not about perfection, but about connection, mutual respect, and support through the complexities of life. By loving her for who she was, rather than who he wanted her to be, he allowed her the freedom to be herself. He didn't impose expectations or try to force her into roles that didn't fit her nature. He accepted her for her individual expression, not trying to mold her to meet his ideals. His love was unconditional in that sense. It did not depend on her changing to suit him, but rather on their shared journey of mutual respect, understanding, and growth. This approach to love was not passive or indifferent. It was an active choice to see her for who she truly was and to engage with her in a way that honored her essence. It meant listening deeply, seeing her as a person on her own path, and supporting her without trying to control or manipulate the direction of that path. It required vulnerability, a willingness to be open and to accept her as she was, without the need to fix anything. This type of love is not about what we can extract from another person, but about what we can give. It is a love that seeks to uplift, not to change. By accepting her as she was, flaws and all, he allowed their relationship to grow in a space where both of them could be authentic, without fear of judgment or rejection. They were two individuals standing side by side, not two people trying to conform to each other's expectations. In loving her for who she was, he showed her the greatest respect. He wasn't trying to shape her to fit his vision of love. He was simply loving her with the understanding that she, as she was more than enough, and in doing so, he gave her the freedom to love herself too. True love is not about ownership or control. It is about acceptance, growth, and mutual respect. It is about two people choosing to walk through life together, not as perfect beings, but as imperfect people committed to seeing and accepting each other fully, without the need for change. Self-respect means acknowledging one's own value, not because of external validation or achievements, but because of the inherent worth that comes from living in accordance with one's principles and virtues. It is not about being perfect. It is about being honest with oneself, accepting flaws, and striving to improve. He realized that a person who lacks self-respect cannot offer a relationship rooted in equality and mutual care. They may seek external validation, constantly chasing approval, love, or affection, but they will never truly be able to give themselves fully to another. True love, in his understanding, comes from a place of knowing who you are, knowing your worth, and standing firm in that truth. He began to treat himself with the same respect he sought to offer others. He practiced kindness and patience with himself, understanding that growth and change take time. He did not allow self-doubt or external criticism to define his sense of self-worth. Instead, he cultivated a quiet confidence that was rooted not in arrogance, but in clarity of purpose. This self-respect did not make him complacent. On the contrary, it motivated him to continue growing, striving for wisdom, and embracing challenges that would make him a better person, not just for himself, but for the relationship he hoped to build. By honoring his own integrity and principles, he created a life for himself that was fulfilling and self-sustaining. His happiness did not rely on external circumstances, nor was it dependent on whether others loved or validated him. He knew that he could not love another person if he had not first established love for himself. This did not mean he was self-absorbed or indifferent to others. Rather, it meant that he had learned the importance of self-sufficiency, of not relying on another person to complete him or fill the voids he had within. Self-respect also meant setting boundaries, knowing when to say no and recognizing when something was not in alignment with his values. He learned that love does not mean tolerating disrespect or compromising his integrity for the sake of pleasing others. True love requires mutual respect, and he understood that if he was to offer love to someone else, he must first respect himself enough to demand it in return. He did not settle for relationships that left him feeling diminished or unappreciated. Instead, he chose to build connections that were grounded in shared values and respect, where both people could grow and evolve together. The strength of his self-respect respect gave him the confidence to love freely without the fear of being abandoned or rejected. It allowed him to give without expecting, to offer without needing to control, and to love without clinging. He understood that true love is not about dependence, but interdependence, two people choosing to walk alongside each other in mutual respect, knowing that each individual brings their own worth to the relationship. In loving himself with respect, he not only became a man who could love others fully, but also a man who could receive love with gratitude and humility. He was no longer seeking validation, nor was he afraid of loss. His love for her was a reflection of his respect for himself and his understanding that a healthy relationship is built on the foundation of two people who stand strong in their own values and principles. Thus, the love he offered was pure, unburdened by insecurity or need, and rooted deeply in self-awareness and self-respect. Love, in its truest sense, is not a mere feeling that comes and goes with the wind. It is not something that simply happens to us or is dictated by emotions beyond our control. Rather, it is a practice, something we must actively cultivate and nurture every day. He understood this fundamental truth about love. It was not enough to feel love in fleeting moments or to have romantic ideals of love that were based on passion alone. True love requires intention, consistency, and effort. In the early stages of his journey with her, he realized that love was not a passive emotion that would simply evolve on its own. Love, as the Stoics would teach, is rooted in virtue and rationality. It is not an uncontrollable surge of feeling. It is the deliberate choice to act with kindness, patience, and integrity, no matter what external circumstances might bring. He saw that love, at its core, is a decision, a commitment to show up for another person, not only when it is easy or convenient, but when it is difficult, when emotions are strained, or when life presents challenges. Every day he made the conscious choice to love her, to engage with her mindfully and with care. This did not mean that he was without doubts or fears. He certainly experienced moments of frustration, confusion, and uncertainty, just as any human would. But he understood that love is not defined by the absence of these feelings. Rather, love is demonstrated in how we choose to respond to them. In those moments, he did not allow his frustration to dictate his actions. He chose, instead, to respond with patience, understanding, and a commitment to preserve the relationship and their shared values. In practicing love, he also made a commitment to growth, both individually and as a couple. Love is not static. It requires constant learning and evolution. He knew that both of them would change over time, that they would face different phases in their lives, each bringing new challenges and new opportunities. To truly love her, he had to embrace this fluidity and remain open to change, both in himself and in their relationship. Love, in his mind, was not a destination to reach, but an ongoing process of mutual growth, communication, and understanding. He also realized that love was an act of service, not in the sense of subjugation, but in the sense of selflessness and generosity. To love her truly meant to act in her best interest, to support her dreams, and to encourage her to become the person she aspired to be. It meant offering her not only your time and energy, but your presence in a way that was consistent and unwavering. His love for her was demonstrated through his actions, through the ways in which he was there for her, through the ways in which he made her feel seen, heard, and valued. There were times when love required sacrifice, when he had to let go of his own preferences or desires to make space for hers. But he did not see this as a loss. He saw it as part of the practice of love. Sacrifice in this sense is not a burden. It is an offering, a way to show that the other person's happiness, well-being, and growth are just as important as our own. He recognized that love is not about taking or possessing, but about giving freely, without expectation or condition. It is an ongoing process of mutual care and consideration where both partners are invested in each other's flourishing. Love, for him, also required mindfulness and reflection. It wasn't enough to simply go through the motions of loving someone. He wanted to ensure that his love was intentional and grounded in the deepest values he held. He often took moments to reflect on how he could be a better partner, how he could show up more fully for her, and how he could nurture the relationship in ways that honored both of them. This self-awareness and intentionality were not signs of insecurity but of wisdom, the wisdom that true love is cultivated through thoughtfulness, effort, and a commitment to being the best version of oneself for the other. In the end, he understood that love was not something to be passively experienced, but something to be actively practiced every day. It was a practice of patience, resilience, and kindness. It was a choice to meet each moment with understanding, to engage with life's challenges with grace, and to invest in the well-being of the relationship as much as in one's own growth. Through this daily practice, his love for her grew stronger, deeper, and more resilient, and in doing so, it became the kind of love that could withstand any challenge, weather any storm, and remain steadfast through the ups and downs of life. To truly love someone, you must first respect the most important relationship they will ever have, the one with themselves. He understood that love could not thrive if one partner was not able to love and care for themselves with the same depth and commitment they offered to the other person. In his eyes, the capacity to love another was directly linked to the ability to love oneself, not in an egotistical or narcissistic way, but in a manner that reflects self-respect, self-compassion, and personal integrity. He realized that no matter how deeply he cared for her, no matter how much he admired her, his love would always be incomplete unless she first valued herself. Love is a reflection of the way we treat ourselves, and without self-love, any relationship would inevitably face struggles. If someone does not recognize their own worth, how can they fully recognize the worth of the person who loves them? He knew that for love to be genuine and enduring, it must come from a place of inner harmony, one where both individuals understand their own value and offer love freely, not out of need or insecurity, but out of a deep sense of self-respect. His commitment to her was unwavering, but it was also founded on the belief that true love allows both individuals to grow and to stand independently, even as they choose to walk together. He did not seek to fill the emotional gaps she may have had, nor did he try to complete her in any way. He understood that she was already whole. Love to him was not about seeking fulfillment through another person, but about sharing a life with someone who had already learned to love themselves and who, in turn, could offer love as a freely chosen gift. In his eyes, her journey of self-love was an essential part of their shared path. He encouraged her to take care of her own emotional, mental, and physical well-being, to prioritize her own growth, and to never lose sight of the value she brought to the world, both as an individual and as a partner. He did not seek to possess her, nor did he wish to alter her. Instead, he admired her for the strength it took to be comfortable with who she was. He knew that for her to truly love him, she had to first love herself, not as a form of narcissism, but as a reflection of her ability to appreciate her own worth, her virtues, and her potential. His love for her was not conditional on her meeting any expectations or on her fulfilling some romantic fantasy. Instead, It was a love that saw her for who she truly was, free from judgment or any desire for change. But equally, he loved her enough to never encourage self-neglect or self-doubt. He sought to remind her of her strength, her resilience, and her inner beauty whenever she felt uncertain. He recognized that one cannot offer love freely unless they have first cultivated a deep understanding of their own value and worth. Through the lens of Stoic philosophy, he understood that love is not dependent on external validation or how another person treats us. Rather, it is an inward journey. His love for her was grounded in the belief that true love is not about dependency, but about two people coming together who have already learned to stand independently. He wanted her to know that she did not need to seek validation from others to feel worthy. Instead, he wanted to be the kind of partner who nurtured her ability to look inward, to recognize her own strengths, and to have the courage to love herself fully and completely. When he loved her, he was loving all that she was, the moments of strength and beauty, as well as the moments of vulnerability and doubt, but he also loved the way she respected herself. He admired the way she stood up for her own values, the way she cared for her mental and emotional health, and the way she recognized her own value. This was not a love built on infatuation, but on deep respect for her as a complete person. To love her as she loved herself was his greatest offering, for it acknowledged that she was worthy of being loved deeply, as much as she was capable of loving herself. He knew that love is not just a mutual exchange, but a reflection of the internal balance each person carries within them. By loving her as she loved herself, he showed her that they were not two incomplete beings trying to find fulfillment in one another, but two whole individuals who chose to share their lives with one another in a way that was both self-respecting and freely chosen. Their love, grounded in this understanding, was one that could withstand anything, for it was rooted in their ability to love and care for themselves first. In conclusion, the journey of love that he embarked upon was not one of mere romantic gestures or fleeting emotions. It was a journey rooted in wisdom, virtue, and self-awareness, principles derived from Stoic philosophy. He learned that love is not something that simply happens to us, but rather something we must actively choose and practice each day. True love, he discovered, begins within, rooted in self-respect and self-awareness. Only when we understand our own worth and values can we offer love freely to another, not with expectations or conditions, but with acceptance and generosity. He became the love she deserved, not by seeking to change her or fulfill some idealistic vision, but by loving her for who she was in all her complexities. His love was grounded in patience, understanding, and a commitment to growth. He respected her journey, embraced her imperfections, and knew that true love does not seek to control, but to support, encourage, and nurture. Through his actions, he demonstrated that love is a practice, a continuous effort to show up for the other person, to respect their individuality, and to share a life built on mutual growth and understanding. In the end, love, as he discovered, is not a passive emotion. It is an active choice, a conscious decision to choose the other person, to love them for who they are, and to honor both the light and the shadows within them. It is about recognizing that love is an ongoing practice of virtue, where both individuals stand strong in their own self-respect and care for one another with unwavering dedication. Through this, he not only became the love she deserved, but together they built a relationship founded on mutual respect, self-awareness, and the quiet, enduring strength of true love.